Today, on current events from a Christian perspective, Joe Biden raises a gigantic pride flag over the lawn of the White House, instilling the new national religion all over America. At the same time, during the following LGBTQ AAIP #++ party in front of the White House, Biden welcomes numerous representatives from the LGBTQ sex religion, and a few of them decide the best expression of their faith is to get naked. Yes, this really happened. Yes, it's a religion. Yes, this is the culture you asked for with secular liberalism. You only get one choice. There's no neutral. There's no nice way. It is either Christ or chaos. And in much of America, even to the White House now, the chaos is showing. It's showing everyone, everything, apparently. I'm Matt Odegaard, and this is Church Public. All right, welcome back to Church Public. I am your host, Matt Odegaard, as always, and I really appreciate you stopping by to take a listen. We look at current events from a Christian perspective so that you can live out your faith more clearly, so that when people see you, they know, hey, that person really does love Jesus. They are different than the rest of the world. So more and more, it's becoming easy to spot Christians because obviously we're not going to stand for the craziness that this world is doing. However, sometimes, I'll just speak, for some of us, it's harder to live with courage in this culture because there's now cost affected with it. If you really profess Christ, you're going to have to really say what you stand for and now what you stand against. And by and large, that's a lot different than some of the culture, some of the just wonderful times in America that we've had in the past few decades where you can be culturally Christian and nobody really cares. Well, now they care. Now you're a hypocrite and all the ists words, the phobes, all of those words, the isms, you're called all of those names if you stand up for Christ now. So I want to help you by understanding what is going on in the culture, understand how we can live out our faith. So we'll look at scripture as we go through. We'll look at Christian perspective, Christian worldview as we go through, looking at theology, looking at the other side, which is secular philosophy, which drives a lot of our current culture, whether or not people know it. So at times we'll kind of get into a little bit of that and try not to be too philosophical because I know it gets really dry and intellectual, and apparently nobody wants that, but I think that way sometimes. So I'll share whatever I can to help you live out your faith in the best way possible, out of your home, out of your church, in the public square, because I believe when God says, love him with all your heart and soul and mind and strength, that means all of you. That means you take all of you everywhere you go, and so you live your faith wherever you go. I don't believe you're doing it right if you only have faith in Jesus at home, in your bedroom, in your closet, or even in your church. I think you need to have faith in Jesus everywhere you go. What does that look like? That's why we do this. That's why we talk through these issues to see, hey, what does it look like to live out your faith? All right. Well, and I forgot to say, of course, subscribe, do all the things. If you want to go to churchpublic.com, you can watch the video. If you're listening to this on audio, I appreciate that. You can subscribe at all the podcast places. You know how to do all that. Anyway, let's talk about some news. Actually, before we get to the news, I love this quote, and I probably have mentioned this before, but I want to bring it out again because I think it illustrates where we are as a culture really, really well. Chesterton said, "When men stop believing in God, they don't believe in nothing, they believe in anything." And I think this is the piece that we need to hold on to and need to really grab a hold of, because I still have friends who say, well, I'm just going to just kind of hide out a little bit and not really engage these issues and not really think about what I need to do from a Christian perspective. I'm just going to kind of live my life. And it's the same thing as the other side is saying, I'm going to live my truth. It's just you happen to have the real truth. You just don't want to share it because it's scary, because there might be consequences to sharing it. And I get that. However, we just really have to focus in on, well, how are you going to live out your faith, and how are people going to know who don't know, right? That's the sharing of the gospel. That's the Matthew 28, where we are called to make disciples. We're called to be the salt and the light. We're called to tell people what it really means to live in the kingdom of God. But now we're in a culture where they say, well, there's no God. Like Nietzsche said, God is dead. And we live in that place and we think there's no consequences to it. But the reality is there are. Humans are deeply religious. We will seek out a framework to make sense of this crazy world. We're going to do that. That's just the reality of how we are. Progressivism, secular liberalism, wokeness, if you prefer, It doesn't have a Bible. It doesn't have a Holy Scripture. It doesn't have a church that's formally where they meet. So it's treated like something that's political or just an idea instead of an official religion. And it was then, because it doesn't have a Bible, it doesn't have a book, it doesn't have a church, it doesn't have a place you meet once a week, it was able to fill this hole that was left by Christianity when Christianity was removed forcibly from the public square, from the public institution, from your work, from your school, all of these places. And this whole quote unquote church and state defense mechanism that some people point to, nobody paid any attention to it, that said, oh, well, this LGBTQ sex cult or wokeism or liberalism more broadly, it's functioning like a religion. Nobody really said anything. I mean, sure, there were people that did. I did. Other people did. But a lot of people just went, oh, well, that's just the way the world is. So we don't need to talk about that. And this is going to, I don't know if this offends people, but liberalism, even classical liberalism, which people point to now and say, I guess there's a lot of conservatives who are saying we just need to go back to classical liberalism. That will just solve everything and fix everything. But the problem is it won't. It offered this promise to society that didn't want religion, right? You had this point, I'm not going to get too historical here, but you had this point where people didn't want religion. They didn't want Christianity as the foundation for the world. So they said, what else can we have? And the liberals came in and said, well, we can have liberalism. The sciences, the senses, all these things, we'll just base our foundation on that and everything will work fine. And so liberalism filled in this void for people who didn't want religion. The promise was social programs, government ideas, government institutions, they were neutral. They were just functions of life, and they could fill this void left by Christianity, by the church, by the Bible, and everybody would just agree with the foundation that was already there. And the foundation was there because this country especially was built on a foundation of Christianity. It just was. You can continue to argue that, but I don't know what to say. You're just wrong. It was built on the foundation of Christianity, and that foundation was in the hearts of the people in America, not just the writings and the documents, but the hearts. When our founders say things like, this country is only fit for a moral people and will not work otherwise, what they meant is this Christianity, which is the foundation that undergirds all of our society, is the thing that makes all of this work. Without that, it just doesn't work, which of course is what we're seeing now. So this idea of liberalism without any Christianity was never true. It was never going to work. Without this foundation of Christianity, there was just nothing liberalism could even build onto, because neutrality is not possible. Even though they say, well, government's neutral. It just does whatever the people want. That's the problem. It does whatever the people want. Every institution operates in a moral worldview. My friends who argue with me, well, how can you legislate morality? How can you make laws that affect other people if they don't believe what you believe? Because there is a morality. The only question is, which one? That is the only question. It's not whether a law legislates morality. It is, which morality do you want? Do you want a morality like what we're going to see in a few minutes, or do you want a morality based on the foundation of the Word of God? You really do have to choose. You're either for God or you're against God. Your morality is either based on God or something else. It will be based on something. That's why I love this Chesterton quote. Using this thread of separation of church and state, which I've mentioned in other places and I'm not going to talk about right now. It's not actually in the Constitution. Longer story we'll get to, or you can go back in the archives and listen to. Large organizations and lawsuits were brought, and it eliminated Christianity and just religious competition entirely from America, from the institutions, from the schools, and from the public workspace. And then this new thing of wokeness has given reign to take over just about everything. Universities, corporations, politics, Hollywood. Everybody fell in line with the woke agenda. Just look around. Just watch any ad or TV show or anything ever. It's all this now. Government agencies, the media, the schools, now they can only present this type of progressive content. So back to Chesterton. Humans are religious, even if you don't want to admit it. Removing the idea of religion like Christianity from every aspect of life did not destroy religion. It only opened the door for another religion that to me is much darker and has now taken its place. The administration has made it abundantly clear that they are fully embracing this new religion. Here again is the post from President Biden a few days ago That said, today, the People's House, your house, sends a clear message to the country and to the world. America is a nation of pride. America is a nation of pride. And a picture of the Pride Progress flag from the White House, hanging on the White House and looking out onto the lawn where he invited a bunch of people to hang out as well. We'll talk about those people in a moment. But just to pause for a second on America is a nation of pride. Is it? Should it be? Should it be a nation of pride? We're going to get to that in a moment, but I want you to think about that. Is America a nation of pride? Should America be a nation of pride? It seems like that's not a great idea. The White House, Twitter also posted this, which is a reverse view. So again, if you're just listening, what you see, if you haven't seen this image all over the internet, it went fairly viral, but again, and I posted it on some of my pages too, so you can go and look at it. And I had some more to say there, but the White House on June 10th said, the largest Pride Month celebration ever held at the White House. And in it, you have, in the center of the White House, a Pride Progress flag in the middle, surrounded by two American flags. Now, there are some things that we're not going to get into today as far as flag code. It seems like this might not even be legal according to flag code because you're not technically allowed to fly a flag at the same level as the American flag because there is no other flag in America that is a representative of our country by law. That's just the law of America. And yet the president of the United States of America at the White House flew this flag, which to me, again, I'm going to keep saying this and you can argue with me. Well, no, this isn't a religion. This is clearly a religion. When you post the flag of this thing that is not a country, and we've talked all about the flag, you can go back and listen to the previous episode where I talk all about flags and why they're symbols and what they mean. If you post this kind of thing, you're saying this is what we now bow down to. I mean, I even like what did I put here? Is it this one? Like this is the Daniel statue where they made a statue of gold, and you have the Rack, Shack, and Benny, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and someone has memed this out with a Pride Progress flag instead of the idol. But I think that's pretty appropriate. I mean, that is essentially what we're talking about here. Like, this is saying from the top level of the top government of the United States of America, this is the thing you need to point to in your life. You're not allowed, we talked the other day, you're not allowed to talk about religion. You're not allowed to post religion. It's not a Christian flag. It's not anything connected to an actual worldview in the kingdom of God. It's connected to this LGBT sex cult. That is just what we're pointing at. So we have to understand that is what the top level of administrators of the United States of America are saying you need to do. Now, let's get into a little bit of detail of what happened there, because what happened there is even more obscene and weird. Obscene and weird. That's a good place to start. It's just a strange thing, and we have to talk about it a little bit. So Rose Montoya is a person. This is Rose Montoya, TikTok star, who had some trouble. Gosh, I don't even want to talk about this, but we have to. Good grief, people. So Rose Montoya is a man who has had a lot of surgeries to look more like a woman. And some of those surgeries are on like breast implants. So this person, Rose Montoya, was invited to the celebration that we just posted to at the White House for the celebration of Pride. Now, why does this matter? Well, it doesn't, except that this person had a run-in at the airport because this person, gosh, I hate this. This person still has male parts and breast implants. So there's a lot of things happening here. It's a male with breast implants. This person went through the scanner at the airport, and the scanner went off because they were using the female setting because he still has male parts. And the scanner on the female setting obviously is not looking for male parts and says there's something going on. Rose Montoya says, quote, going through the scanner, I always have a, quote, this is Montoya's words, anomaly, end quote, between my legs that sets off the alarm, end quote. That was all Rose Montoya. So the TSA asked if Rose Montoya wanted to go through the male scanner, and that time the breast implants set off the scanner because it was set on the male, and right. So this is, it is what it is. This is just the weirdness of the world that we're living in now, where people just make their bodies to be whatever they want them to be rather than what God has given them. Okay, that's the Christian worldview. Montoya went on to say, quote, my body is normal. My body is perfect. My body is not an anomaly. My body is not alarming, end quote. To which I ask, a couple of sentences ago, you said there is an anomaly. But at the same time, if your body was perfect, this is me talking now, wouldn't you not have done all these surgeries to make your body look way different than originally it did? I literally can't keep up here, people. So then, that's part of the story that I think everybody knew. I had never heard of it, but if you're going to invite somebody to the White House for a celebration, would you not do the most cursory background check where this viral thing, I mean, millions of people saw this viral thing. So I pretty much guarantee at least the interns, the TikTok interns at the White House knew what was going on here. And this is the person they're inviting to the White House. So fast forward to last weekend where Montoya and a whole bunch of other people were invited to the White House to play dress up and do this whole thing. Invited. That's an important word here. So remember, Biden put up the flag. This was what he wanted. He put up this flag and had this at the White House. And then Montoya did this. And I'm not going to show the whole video because I'm not. I'll talk about it in a second. But I'll show part of this video where Joe Biden himself is hanging out with Montoya.
Happy Pride Month.
Can we take a little video? Hi, Mr. President.
This is Rose Montoya shaking Biden's hand, shaking Jill Biden's hand. That is all of the video that I could show. Because right after this portion of the video, this human took off their clothes, among other people who took off their clothes on the front lawn of the White House because they did. So that's apparently how you show respect to the White House. You show respect to the center of democracy by being naked, apparently. Now, don't be deceived. Montoya was invited to this White House, and this man who dresses like a woman, who had surgery to look more like a woman, took off his/her top to be bare-chested at the White House like some kind of debauched spring break party. But not only that, Montoya is pictured next to another person who is a woman but did top surgery so that her breasts are cut off and she looks more like a man, and took hormones to grow to grow hair everywhere, etc. It's a whole thing. Then, of course, this clip also went viral, and the White House was very, very offended. So the White House was very offended and said the White House bans LGBTQ activists for going topless at Pride event. They're very angry, big angry at the people who went topless at the White House. Let's talk about this a little bit more. So the White House statement said, quote, "This behavior is inappropriate and disrespectful for any event at the White House. It is not reflective of the event we hosted to celebrate LGBTQI plus families or the other hundreds of guests who were in attendance," end quote. They went on to say, quote, "Individuals in the video will not be invited to future events." So then Montoya responds again. Here is Montoya's response to this whole thing.
It has recently come to my attention that conservatives are trying to use the video of me topless at the White House to try to call the community groomers, etc. And I would just like to say that, first of all, going topless in Washington, D.C. is legal. And I fully support the movement in freeing the nipple, because why is my chest now deemed inappropriate or illegal when I show it off?
Yeah. So why? Well, the question is why that Montoya asks. Well, because men are different than women, which you obviously know because you had surgery to make your man parts look more like lady parts. And now you're mad when people notice, especially when you take off your own clothes and show everyone the parts that you had surgically changed. And the point here, point two, is obscenity is obscene. We all know this. When you act in an obscene way, and we notice you acted in an obscene way, don't be surprised that people are upset. You did this, not us. We just want to look at the White House, go to the White House, and say the Pledge of Allegiance to one nation under God, and you all now want us to say the Pledge of Allegiance to Pride.
I pledge my heart.
I pledge my heart
to the rainbow.
To the rainbow.
Of the not so typical gay camp.
Of the not so typical gay camp.
One camp.
One camp.
Full of pride.
Full of pride.
Indivisible.
Indivisible.
With affirmation and equal rights for all.
With affirmation and equal rights for all.
Watch your heads.
Now, that was a pledge to the pride flag that had nothing to do with the White House celebration, but I've had that clip for a while and wanted to put it in because I think it illustrates what we're talking about. People are literally pledging to pride rather than pledging their allegiance to the country that they live in to be nationally respectful under God. And of course, we're told if you're nationally respectful in any way, you're a Christian nationalist, white nationalist, nationalists are bad, colonials are bad, everything about the country is bad. But if you pledge your allegiance to a pride flag and your sexual identity, then you're amazing and you're morally good. And this is, of course, the thing that is opposite of reality. We should be proud of the country that we're in because people have lived, fought, and died for this country to give us the freedoms that we now have, freedoms that now we're using to pledge to something else because we don't care anymore about the freedoms and want to just do whatever we want to do, love whoever we want to love, and be obscene in whatever way we want to be obscene with no consequences whatsoever. But this is the reality of the world that we live in and why I keep saying there is no neutral. You are either for Christ or you're either for chaos. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the chaos seems to be showing a lot these days. So the White House then responded. I know this keeps going back and forth, but I think it's important to follow this story to understand what in the world is going on here. So the White House responded, and the White House they were just in such disgust, right? They banned people from the White House because obviously you can't get naked on the front lawn of the White House, but they invited these people and they knew about these people because they were TikTok stars who became famous for doing this kind of thing on social media all the time. But oh no, it's very terrible. I mean, it's one thing. If you do it, on social media, that's one thing. If you do it in schools, that's one thing. If you do it on the street in a pride parade where the topless people at the White House actually were not as obscene as some of the things that have happened in pride parades over the last couple of weeks. If you do all of that, that's great, good, wonderful. If you want to try to transition your little son or little daughter to the other gender by surgeries and by medicines and hormone blockers and all these other things, that's wonderful. We love that. That's actually, it's not even more than wonderful. It's necessary. We have to do that. But if you get naked at the White House, of course, that's really bad. We can't do that. So all of this censorship of people, this oppression of the LGBTQ community is just too much for Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre to bear.
Is there going to be a greater effort in the future to communicate a code of conduct for White House guests?
Look, as you mentioned, the statement that we put out, you heard from us earlier today, the behavior was simply unacceptable. We've been very clear about that. It was unfair to the hundreds of attendees who were there to celebrate their families. So, we're going to continue to be clear on that. And that type of behavior is, as I said, unacceptable. It's not appropriate. It's disrespectful. And let's not, it really does not reflect the event that we hosted to celebrate the LGBTQ plus families.
Really? Like, really? Really? Are you shocked? You knew who these people were. You knew them because they were on TikTok. You knew they were because they were on TikTok for doing these types of things. And you invited them to your White House lawn sex party. And then they did the thing that they got famous doing, and now you're surprised and shocked. I am struggling to believe this. It seems more like a lie. It seems like you wanted this the whole time. It seems like all of the rest of the times you've been saying it is 100% necessary to affirm people's sexual identity. If you don't, that's bad. But now that people have their sexual identity and show their sexual identity literally for the whole world to see on the White House lawn, oh, now you have a code of conduct. Now it's bad. Really? Really? I just have trouble believing all of this. You have been talking about the last several decades of progress, how you needed this progress. You said you wanted to be married to your same-sex partner, you wanted to have funeral rights, you wanted to get tax breaks, but then immediately you put LGBT in everything and pushed Christianity out of everything. So tell me how terribly you really feel and how you really think this is the worst thing that there's a man with a woman's bare breasts at the White House while you are arguing that it's a moral good for children to participate in drag shows with mostly naked men. Or tell me how good it is for children to have books with gay pornography in elementary schools. But this is the line. This is the line that you draw when they're on the White House. Everywhere else, it's totally fine. Not only is it totally fine, it's necessary and good. And it's bad when people like me say, hey, maybe we shouldn't have gay pornography in schools. That's terrible for me to say. But then on the White House lawn, oh, that's bad. Really, really, really. Or are you just upset because you got caught? Are you just upset and you got caught in public with the same thing that you push every other single day across the country to families and especially children? And then if we notice these things and we say, hey, I don't like all this public obscenity, I'm the bad, immoral, evil, old-fashioned bigot. Sure, okay. Was this an accident? As I keep saying, you invited these people and they got naked. Of course they got naked. Why are you surprised at that? You've been declaring Pride Month, not even just this month, for weeks and weeks and weeks. And pride parades and drag queen story hour from literally everywhere we've been hearing this. And now you're surprised that these people got naked at the White House. Why wouldn't they? I can't even blame them. I blame you. The administration said America is a nation of pride. We just looked at that slide. And then, of course, you live in pride and you live in expression. And you told us that everyone, the best thing for you to possibly do is to live your truth and live out loud and live authentically. And for these people, living their truth is getting naked. So they did. And that's exactly what happened because you invited them. The only thing you've told us, the only thing that means anything in your life is your sexual identity. So, of course, these people are going to express their sexual identity. Your religion doesn't mean anything. And if you are saying you're religious, like me, you're just a bigot and you're old-fashioned. And instead, you need to worship at, I'll put it up again, you need to worship at the idol of Pride and Progress. And I'll put up here, again, White House Pride and Progress, right there. This is what you need to worship. And you've told us, Joe Biden said, we are a nation of pride. And yet now, when people live that out, you say, oh, this is terrible and we can't have this. I don't believe you. I think you're lying because you got caught and now you're embarrassed because what you're actually doing and what you've actually been saying for months and months and years at this point is gross and we don't want it. And now that we notice we don't want it and you notice, hey, not everybody loves this as much as we thought they did, you go, oh, well, this is bad. So this is where we get to Biden a little bit ago putting out this message because this is the message that you've been telling us for so long now. Biden put this message out saying that your kids are not your kids. My kids are not my kids. No, they're all our kids. Let's listen to this terrifying message.
These are our kids. These are our neighbors. Not somebody else's kids. They're all our kids. And our children are the kite strings that hold our national ambitions aloft. It matters a great deal how we treat everyone in this country. LGBTQ Americans, especially children, you're loved, you're heard, and this administration has your back.
So if you couldn't see, that was over the background of a rainbow flag lit up White House again. And they're saying, hey, your kids are not your kids. Of course, they're not your kids. Your kids are our kids. So we're going to teach our kids all of this thing. We're going to teach our kids all about LGBTQI++ hashtag squiggly emoji because that is what we believe in. Once again, this is the White House Pride Progress flag. This is all we want. We don't want anything that you have to have. This Bible sitting next to me that I read every day so that I know what God's word is and the foundation that is secure that I'm going to stand on. Of course, we don't want that. That's old fuddy-duddy, old-fashioned. You're archaic, you're bigoted, you're homophobic, you're all the things. We don't want any of that. No, we want pride. And then when we actually see where pride leads, okay, well, that was maybe a little bit too much, but we want everything up until that point. What? What are you talking about? And then you have the Health and Human Services Secretary, Xavier Becerra, saying, yes, we're going to withhold money from states that ban gender surgeries. So he is tying up federal funds from states if the state says, hey, we don't want this, even though the Washington, D.C. President of the United States, Biden administration says, we're going to do all this. We're going to push all this across the country. And a state says, we are in a federal system, by the way, a state says, hey, I don't want any of this. We're going to ban gender surgeries, gender transitions for children. Xavier Becerra says, well, then we're not going to give you any of the federal funding that we owe you. Check this out.
This spring, HHS released a 112-page report claiming that gender affirmation, including social transition, changing one's name, pronoun, and/or appearance, is appropriate and beneficial for gender minority children and adolescents, according to this report. The report recommends cutting federal funds from states with, quote, policies that stigmatize transgender children, including by denying them access to medically necessary health care, end quote. Mr. Secretary, does this mean that HHS is seriously threatening to withhold hospital grants from states like my own if they refuse to go along with surgeries or or puberty blockers for kids?
Congressman, we're going to protect the rights of any American to get the health care they're entitled to. And if someone tries to stop them from that, that's a violation of the law.
So you would withhold hospital grants from states like mine that ban transgender sex reassignment surgeries for minors? I mean, that's what the report says, clearly.
We will protect the rights of any individual to receive the health care they're entitled to.
So the answer is quite clearly yes. If your state says you're not going to do the surgeries this administration wants you to do, especially on minors, your whole state suffers. This is the administration that is pushing this on you. There is no neutral. You cannot sit on the sidelines and go, well, it's just all going to get back to normal eventually. I just keep saying, I don't know what to tell you. When you see things like this, I don't know how you could say, oh, well, yeah, it's all going to get back to normal. We're just going to go back to the 90s or the 50s or wherever. Let's go back further than that. Let's go to like the 1500s or 1600s, like the 1200s. Let's go way back. That's what I'm saying at this point. Or maybe back to Acts, where we actually live out the church as Paul talks about. But let's keep going, because there's a little bit more before we get to the end of this. I'll end on a verse in just a moment if you can get to the end here. So then this same interview where Karine Jean-Pierre says, hey, you know, we are very upset that transgender people got naked on the White House lawn. This same session, she's asked about, well, what about transgender people, like men who dress up like women, competing in sports with actual women? What do you think about this? What does the White House think about this? Here's what she said.
There who have daughters, let's say in high school, for example, who are worried that their daughter may have to compete against a male, a person born male, and there could be directly in physical athletic competition and worry about their daughter's safety.
So look, what you're alluding to is basically saying that transgender kids are dangerous. It sounds like that's what you're saying. Well, you're saying that their safety is at risk. Yeah, but you're laying out a broad example or explanation of what could potentially happen. A broad example explanation. That is dangerous. That is a dangerous thing to say. That essentially transgender kids we're talking about are dangerous, and so that's something that I have to call out, and that is irresponsible.
So this is again the same session. Let me get this straight. When transgender people get naked on the White House lawn, very inappropriate. They'll never be invited back to here. But if transgender people get naked in a locker room with opposite sex people, for instance, a teenage boy who thinks he's a girl gets naked in a teenage girls' locker room, it's dangerous to not let that happen. It's irresponsible to not let boys get naked in girls' locker rooms. What? Really? What? This is where we are. You keep saying these things and then say, oh, well, of course we can't have them back to the White House if they get naked, but they definitely should get naked in the locker rooms because it's dangerous to not let them get naked. Again, I don't believe you. I think you're lying when you say you care that anybody got naked on the White House lawn. I think that's what you want. I think you just said that's what you want. That's clearly what you want. You're just mad that you got caught and people went, I don't want this. And this news reporter, props to this news reporter, who apparently is one of the only ones who says true and real things and hasn't been kicked out of that White House press conference yet. So we need more people saying, no, I don't want naked boys in the naked girls' room. Like, of course not. Everybody knew this up until 5 seconds ago. But now the White House itself is saying it's dangerous and irresponsible to question the fact that these naked boys need to be in the naked girls' room. Like, what? Where did we get to this place? And it's clear how we got to this place. I kind of explained some of that earlier today. But unfortunately, Christians for too long have tried to be nice and tried to be patient. And America has been patient. And we've been patient. We've all been patient. And apparently what it took for America to stand up and say, no, I don't really like this, is a gigantic pride progress flag on the very White House and having a naked man-woman on the front lawn. This is apparently what it took. So I'm glad for that. I wish people had said something earlier, but hey, it is what it is, and we are where we are. And the good news is there is some pushback happening. Obviously, we've seen things like Target and Bud Light and Kohl's and the Dodgers. Man, there's a good Dodgers story that I don't have time for today, but I want to get to because last night was the Pride night that we've been talking about with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. I didn't get a chance to find the clip today, but the whole stadium was basically empty. Nobody went in for the honoring of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. But the bigger thing is that outside of the stadium, while this was all happening, there was an enormous hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who had a prayer meeting. I love this. Yes, it was Catholics and Protestants alike. Okay, great. This is where, as Christians more broadly, we need to get together, get through some of our theological differences and say, culturally, we have to stop this wackiness, this new religion that's coming on to the forefront of America by being peaceful and praying and saying, no, we're not going to take this ridiculousness anymore. And we're going to have a prayer meeting in place of, like literally in the same place of your obscenity, saying we're going to honor as bastions of the community these Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. I love that happened. I'll talk about more. I'll try to get some of those clips for you later. I think I posted some of them on the social medias at ChurchPublic, so you can check that out if you have time for that. But there is more pushback going on, and the left is really, really, really mad at this. And here's where we talk about kids getting involved. I love this. I love this part. Burlington, Vermont, there's some high schoolers who are not interested in dressing up for Pride Day in rainbows and unicorns. So what happened was these kids were told it is Pride Day, so you must come to school in rainbows and dress up and participate in this Pride thing. That seems like coercion to me. Again, I was told there is no national religion. Only if you tell me I have to dress up in a certain way to go to a certain event, that feels like coercion of religion to me. Just saying. So these kids were told they have to come to Pride Day and unicorns and rainbows, and they said no. Here is what happened. This is a pretty fun story. Let's take a listen.
Parents angry at town hall over intolerance at Marshall Simons Middle School. Kids were asked to wear rainbow clothes in honor of Pride Spirit Day, but some organized a counter-protest wearing red, white, and blue or black. The principal sharing a statement to families that Pride posters were ripped down, stickers ripped up. Some students chanted "USA are my pronouns," and students showing Pride were intimidated.
It was an unruly disruption, in fact, that was organized ahead of time.
While some parents were upset, others say it was overblown.
Some of the kids threw the stickers on the ground. But, I can only speak for my daughter. She didn't want to wear that to school. It's not that she wanted to hurt anybody's feelings.
She says her daughter felt coerced to participate in the Pride event and was offended by some of the messages, like this quote from Tennessee Williams.
Human heart cannot be straight. It is curves and winds. And my daughter just kind of said, Mom, that's offensive to me, who I am straight.
Right. So the kids are told they must wear rainbow to school. And the kids are told, well, nobody's really straight. Straight is bad. What you really want to be is curved. What you really want to be is LGBTQAIP #++ $squiggly emoji. Because that's really where the greatness is. That's where the goodness is. You're bad if you're just straight. And since when are kids compelled to wear pride gear to school? And if they don't, they're the terrible people. And when they're wearing red, white, and blue and chanting "God bless America" or "USA, USA," that's the problem here. This is the crazy part that goes against the new religion, and we cannot have that. We cannot have anyone go against this new religion. This is what I keep telling you. They will force you to do these things because they know it's not real, and so they have to make you say that it's right. You must be forced to wear the rainbow gear, and you must be forced to say, "I love it." Again, I thought we were not allowed to have a national religion. I thought this was a separation of church and state, but in this case, apparently it does not apply. And the only media coverage that I could find of this event is not that 6th graders, like 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, are being forced to wear rainbow gear and celebrate sexual identities, right? That's what the story should be. The story should be 6th graders, 12-year-olds are being forced to wear rainbow gear at school and celebrate their sexual identity. But no, the news coverage is 6th graders are terrible because they didn't go along with the rainbow crowd and they chanted USA. Oh, that's terrible. 6th graders are obviously just terrible, right? Because they chanted USA and they really liked saying that America is awesome. But no, they're terrible for doing this instead of the school who made them wear rainbow gear and then kicked them out when they didn't wear rainbow gear. That's bad. That's the bad thing, not the kids. I mean, good grief. And don't forget that it's probably the parents' fault. This was also in that video. It goes by really quick, but I'll play it for you.
This type of intolerant rhetoric starts in the home.
So that was quick. Just in case you missed it, this was that same town hall video where this type of rhetoric starts in the home. It's you parents. You parents are teaching your kids Bible. You guys are teaching your kids values. You're teaching your kids that, hey, family is good and family is between a man and a woman, and there are men and there are women, and it's good to have a family and have babies. That is terrible. This starts in the home. We have got to stop this ridiculousness before it gets out of hand. Instead, we need to force them to wear rainbow gear and celebrate rainbow pride always, all the time, everywhere, because that's what's important. Again, you must bow down. This is the culture that they're trying to put into. I mean, don't even forget. I didn't pull this clip, but you can go back and listen to it. Don't forget, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about this kid. He was forced to change his shirt because his shirt, kid, wore a shirt, I think middle school, wore a shirt that said there are only 2 genders. He was forced to remove his shirt, and if he didn't, he was forced to leave class. He was asked to leave school. He was threatened with expulsion. He was threatened with all these things. But sure, there's no national religion that you must comply with or else you're kicked out of everywhere. Or maybe there is. I mean, this is just what seems to be the reality of the way that we're living. People are beginning to wake up, and I love this. People are beginning to wake up, and the case in point, again, Bud Light has lost billions and billions and billions. And after putting up Dylan Mulvaney, the trans guy, as a brand ambassador, Target, of course, is still reeling, also lost billions from the blowback. We talked about the Dodgers. I just read that Starbucks has quietly banned all pride decor in their whole stores. They're saying that they didn't, but they're also saying that they did. So I don't know. I haven't reported the story because I haven't got to the bottom of that story, but it seems like they've canceled pride decor. Starbucks, who has been very affirming, let's just say, over the past few years, has now in this month, in Pride Month, said we can't do pride decor in their stores for the remainder of the month. This is where we get to you and me and our families and everyone we know. Your dollars matter. Your participation matters. Your voice matters. They want to silence you. But I hope that you keep speaking the truth. I hope that you keep telling the culture that obscenity is not appropriate. Pride is not a virtue. Love is not love. We'll end with this verse. I just think this is a great verse to end on. I posted this the other day. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. James 4:6. God is love. God is truth. And in God alone do we trust. I'll end there and say amen. For Church Public, I'm Matt Odegaard, and as always, I hope that you will keep the faith.